You're listening to the Ask Drone U podcast. You ask, we answer your drone questions. Whether you're here to turn your passion into profit or you simply fly for fun, we're a community of learners and teachers who aspire to achieve greatness. We are
Drone U.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Ask Drone U. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Transport Canada to find more, to really research and discover more about what Americans can and cannot do with the updated regulations from Canada. Now, if you're like me, you love to travel north to Canada because the beautiful waters, the lack of people, and the amazing natural resources that they have is a true beauty when it comes to living in the United States. And luckily, thanks to Transport Canada, we have Mr. Justin Miller here today to help us understand how we can already utilize our existing Part 107 certificate to acquire some rights to fly up north. Welcome to the show, Mr. Miller. Really appreciate having you here with me today.
Thanks for having me.
No, I'm really excited that Transport Canada has, given us some time to get some clarity on what Part 107 pilots can do and what they can't do. So maybe we should just start at the top here and help us understand, when were the rules updated in Canada and how does this affect Americans? I'm sure that's not a question you get typically very often, but appreciate you answering it.
We actually get a lot of applicants from foreign countries that want to come and fly in Canada, so it is something we deal with quite a bit. The new rules that govern RPAS, so remotely piloted aircraft systems in Canada, came into force on June 1st of 2019. So they've been around for about 6 months, and they cover all drones from 250 grams right up to 25 kilograms.
So one quick question I have for you, just to interrupt you, is the new Mavic Mini just came out. It's 249 grams. If someone is flying that Mavic Mini, are they going to be pursuant to Canadian law?
Yes. So we would consider the Mavic Mini at 249 grams as a micro drone. So it doesn't require registration. It doesn't require a pilot certificate to operate. And we don't consider it to operate within the basic or advanced environments that we can talk about a little bit later. But you do have to fly it safely. So similarly to the FAA, we have a rule about reckless and negligent flying. So you have to fly it safely. And you also have to keep clear of restricted airspace. So our airspace structure works a little bit different than it does down in the United States, but stay clear of restricted airspace and stay clear of forest fire areas.
Forest fires I know have been a big issue, as I got hassled myself heading up to Calgary one time from Montana, and the only concern from Border Patrol was the fact they were worried that I was going to fly around those forest fires, which I got a quick joke for you just to lighten the mood a little bit. Do you know where you can meet the meanest Canadians? Do you know?
Where's that?
Border Patrol. Just saying. just trying to give them a hard time. But that being said, so help me understand, when it comes to restricted airspace, is that essentially like the equivalent of controlled airspace in the United States, the upside down wedding cakes that we're used to seeing around airports, large and small?
It'd be more like a TFR down in the United States.
Okay.
So we have two different types of restricted airspace. We have what we call Class F restricted airspace. And these are areas like around military installations, around Parliament Hill, the Prime Minister's house, those types of things. And then we also have more temporary restrictions for forest fires and things like that.
Gotcha. So going back to kind of the main point of the show and helping us understand, as a Part 107 pilot, if I wanted to come fly in Canada, am I limited to just hobbyist operations? Can I do commercial operations as well? And what operating limitations do we have as Part 107 operators coming to Canada?
Okay, so any foreign operator, so anybody who's not Canadian, would have to get a special flight operations certificate to fly in Canada, regardless of whether or not you have a 107 certificate down in the States or not. So you can do that by applying on the Transport Canada website, on the drone safety website, for a special flight operations certificate. And within that certificate, it'll list the conditions that you have to meet in order to fly in Canada.
On that SFOC, are there different types of SFOCs, meaning like a simplified SFOC and maybe some of the limitations that would go on with that? And is there a more, comprehensive SFOC?
So the SFOC there's just one certificate, but we kind of tailor them to the needs of the applicant. So if there's something like really specific that you want to do, you can apply to do that task, and we'll tailor the SFOC so that you can do it, or we'll work with you to try and make sure that you can accomplish what you want to do. Keeping in mind that there's some things that just aren't possible within the rules, right?
Oh, gotcha. So I know I interrupted you. So let's go right back to where you were with, if you're a Part 107 pilot, either way, you still have to file that SFOC, which I think goes against some of the common, well, we'll call it rumors on the internet, that if I had a Part 107 certificate, as long as I flew in non-controlled airspace, such as Class G airspace, that I would be able to fly without that SFOC. And you're saying, nope, that is not the case.
That is not the case. You still need a special flight operations certificate. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, just continuing with the answer I had there before. We don't distinguish in Canada anymore between commercial and hobbyist aviation. Drones are the same regardless. So it's one set of rules that just applies for everyone. So while the special flight operations certificate might allow you to fly in Canada, there might be some other rules in place that cover working in Canada if you're an American.
So that is, I'm like, continue, elaborate.
Right.
Like, what does that look like?
Well, so that one, I work for Transport Canada, so I'm like an aviation safety expert. So getting a visa to work in Canada or meeting the requirements for an American to work in Canada, I'm not sure how you go about that. It would probably be best talk to either Immigration Canada or Canadian Border Services.
Gotcha. So I guess it's not called Border Patrol. Well, good to know. That being said, that brings me to one of the other questions that we had notated. Are there any certain types of drones that may be pre-qualified for operations over people?
So we, on the Transport Canada website, on the drone safety page, there is a list of all the drones and what they can do. So just to take a step back and to kind of explain how we get to ops over people, the new regulations divided operations in Canada into two groups based on the environment. So there's a basic environment, which is Class G airspace, outside of, well, because it's Class G, it's outside of controlled airspace, more than 30 meters from people. And then there's the advanced environment, which is inside controlled airspace or closer than 30 meters to people or over people or within 3 nautical miles of an airport. So in order to fly in that advanced environment, a pilot needs an advanced certificate. They need a drone that's registered. And then the drone also has to meet the safety assurance profile for the type of operation they want to do. So operations over people is one of those types of operations that requires a safety assurance profile. And on our website, there's a list of which drones can do what. So there are about 190 or so approximately drones that have submitted a declaration for some element of advanced operations. And about 50 of those have submitted a declaration saying they're safe for over people.
Gotcha. Interesting. So it seems like there are then two types of SFOCs. There's the basic and the advanced.
No, kind of. So we have two different environments, but the SFOC is still the same.
Gotcha.
So if you apply and you want to fly in both, we'll give you one SFOC to fly in both environments. If you apply and you want to fly in just one, we'll restrict it to just that one. Right? But the certificate, it's still the same because we'll tailor the conditions in the certificate to meet the applicant's needs. So it's not like a generic piece of paper that we just kind of print off. They're essentially custom built for what you want to do.
Gotcha. And as a Part 107 pilot, is it rather easy to acquire the basic operation limitations with my Part 107? Meaning, as a Part 107 pilot, do I meet any prerequisite that you guys are looking for?
I don't know if you meet a prerequisite, but the folks that review the SFOCs I think they have a pretty decent understanding of what Part 107 allows. So it makes it easier for us to evaluate your skill and say, yes, you do meet some sort of knowledge requirement. And we might be able to turn that certificate a little bit faster than if you didn't have anything. Does
the Part 107 certificate hold much weight when it comes to the advanced environments?
Same thing. We kind of have to look at them on a case-by-case basis, right? So it depends on what you want to do in that advanced environment. So it's hard to say.
Yeah, it's very interesting. So for those of us who have a totally flawed and messed up measurement system, you said that you have to be about 30 meters away from people or subjects. what is that, like 110 feet? I'm not really sure. And I'm not trying to say
100 feet.
100 feet. Okay. I'm not trying to say the metric system is flawed. I'm trying to say that the American system is flawed. Metric is a lot easier to compute pretty much everything.
Well, I think when we published the regs, we actually listed it in both. So
wow.
you take a look, it's translated for you.
Totally. So I guess that 30 meter, I guess you would call it your buffer zone, as far as, where the drone needs to be flown away from other people and things. Are there any other limitations that Americans should be aware of that are common with the basic operating environment and with acquiring that, SFOC?
Well, again, I'm not totally certain where the bounds are on the Part 107 box down in the United States, but I can say that the basic environment is topped out at 400 feet. So if you want to go above 400 feet, even as a Canadian, require a special flight operations certificate. So that really kind of creates that boundary for the basic environment. It's Class G airspace or uncontrolled airspace up to 400 feet, 30 meters away from people. And then within controlled airspace, it's a little bit different. We don't have a maximum altitude within controlled airspace. It's because you have to receive an authorization from Nav Canada, our air traffic services provider. They'll work with you to kind of find an altitude that'll work for them and allow you to complete your mission.
Okay, hold on. Did I hear that correctly? Did you say that you can work with a Canadian UAS licensed operator?
No. Sorry. Nav Canada is our air traffic services provider.
Gotcha.
So they're the ones that, like the air traffic controllers, the ones that manage controlled airspace. Sorry.
No, it was interesting because I was reading the next question and trying to follow along with you because I was like, wait a minute, did he just touch on that? But it does bring me to the next question, which is, let's say, I'm a multinational firm and I have a large, fracking company that extends from Midland, Texas through New Mexico, all the way up through the basin into Canada. If I wanted to have a lot of drone operators, a lot of operations, it seems like the FSOC would be rather limiting in my ability to scale those operations. Would it be easier for me as a drone company or as a service provider to work with a Canadian UAS licensed operator to fly alongside me or fly with me, even as operating as a VO in some way, to sidestep the necessity for the SFOC?
Well, I don't know if we want to sidestep the requirement for an SFOC, but no. So in order to fly without an SFOC in Canada, you'd have to hold a Canadian remotely piloted aircraft certificate. So supervising it won't work.
Gotcha. Okay, and that has been something going around on Reddit that you can do. So I am grateful that you came and clarified.
Yeah. There are some regulations within, we call it Part 9 of the Canadian Aviation Regulations that allow supervision, but they're really designed for minors. So if you had, a younger person with you, like a 9-year-old who wanted to try flying the drone, you can supervise them while they fly the drone. It wasn't really designed, though, for large corporations too.
Or small businesses.
Or small, yeah. Exactly. Yeah, so the person you're supervising has to be under 14.
Oh, okay. So that is clearly written in the regulations
then.
Gotcha. Well, I mean, I think we kind of touched on a lot of these questions, but some of the answers may not be as direct as what some people may like. Now, that being said, you did mention some of the differences in airspace between the States and Canada. Would you recommend that someone go learn the Canadian airspace, or are there any other differences that American pilots should really be aware of? Because I will say, when I look at an airspace map or a sectional in the United States and I look at one in Canada, they look almost identical.
Yeah, so we use the same letters to designate airspace, but it does mean something a little bit different. So if you were going to get your SFOC and you're going to fly in Canada, the best place to look would probably be the Transport Canada Drone Site Selection Tool. It's a great name. It's available on our website. So it's an interactive map that shows basically shows where you can and cannot fly. So it shows the restricted airspace, it shows the airports, it shows how close you can get to them. There's a selector on it, and it changes the map based on whether you want to fly in the advanced environment or the basic environment. So it really does a good job of kind of showing you where you are and where you can fly.
Gotcha. Well, let me ask you this, Mr. Miller. Is there anything else, any other messages you'd like to get out to American pilots who are crossing the border for some delicious food or flights by chance?
Well, check out the Transport Canada website if you're interested in coming to Canada. It does have the instructions for applying for a Special Flight Operations Certificate, or SFOC. Give us some time to process it. It does take some time.
What kind of time frame are we talking about?
The service standard is about 30 days, but give us as long as you can.
Gotcha. Are there any other requirements or any other documentation that we should have prepared as American pilots? Because one question that comes to mind is the FAA does not require aviation insurance, which, could be a libertarian standpoint, which I would appreciate, but I do think it's important for pilots to have insurance. Is that a requirement in Canada?
It's not a requirement in Canada either.
Interesting.
For our past operations, it is for traditional piloting.
Yeah, no, that's definitely useful information. I just want to make sure that we covered everything here, Mr. Miller, because I really do feel like, Canada is a beautiful place to fly. There are so many beautiful areas, and it makes me, I just have so many questions. Like, are there rules about national parks? Is that differentiated?
Yes, there are rules about national parks. I'm glad you brought that one up. So the designated parks, you need permission from the park authority in order to fly in there.
Gotcha.
So if you're going to go to Banff or something like that, make sure that you get permission from the national parks before you fly your drone in the park.
Now, is there like a systematic means of acquiring permission or permitting? Because this has been quite a contentious, topic in the United States. So it makes me wonder how the process works in Canada, because it seems like it's a lot of give and take, that the differences in regulations, there are some benefits to working in Canada, and there are definitely some differences that we may not be used to.
You know what? I'm not sure. We'll have to check the Parks Canada website. Maybe we can get back to you with a link on how to apply for a permit to operate within the parks.
Awesome. Well, do you think that we missed anything? Is there any message that you want to get out to Part 107 pilots? Actually, before you say that, I have another question, and excuse my ADD nature. It's who I am. But that being said, if I don't have a Part 107 license, let's say I'm just Joe Schmo and I got an awesome Mavic Mini, man, and I'm going to come up there and fly, man. Like, do they still have to apply for an SFOC? And then if they still do have to apply, is the propensity for getting approved higher by having a Part 107 certificate?
So we look at all the applications on their own. And I don't know that not having a Part 107 certificate certainly wouldn't be limiting. It might speed it up, but it wouldn't prevent the application from going through. Now, the Mavic Mini, though, is a micro drone. Like I said, it doesn't actually need an SFOC.
I might have missed that. So I can go to Canada, I can fly in uncontrolled airspace with a Mavic Mini, and I don't need to apply for anything.
That's right.
Wow. All right. Well, I appreciate it.
Because like I said, the SFOC thing is from 250 grams to 25 kilograms and above.
Well, no, I really appreciate you saying that. It adds more value to owning the Mavic Mini, which I haven't found many points of value here in the United States with that particular vehicle. So do appreciate that. Well, thank you, my friend, for coming on the show. Do appreciate your time. And again, if you have something else that you want to say, get your message out now to American pilots. Like if you think that maybe we're speedier pilots or slower pilots, I don't know, but whatever message you have, this is your opportunity, my friend.
Go check out the website if you're going to fly in Canada.
All right, simple as
it's all there. Check out the map. Make sure you don't fly in restricted airspace. Stay away from forest fires and get an SFOC.
Hey, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Actually, my very last question. What is Canada's history, or the Transport Canada's history, in enforcements against drone law? Because that has been, again, another topic in the United States that's drawn criticism. And I just wonder, is there more enforcement going on in Canada than maybe what we're typically used to in the United States?
I don't know about more, but in Canada, we've delegated some of that authority to our national police force, the RCMP, as well as some provincial and municipal police forces. So they will enforce the Aeronautics Act, which is how that SFOC gets to you. So you could be, if you're flying in Canada, asked by a police officer to produce your SFOC.
Awesome.
Right? And if you don't have the required documentation, the fines can range anywhere from $1,000 to $5,000.
God, but there's no arrests, there's no jail time, there's no prison, cruel and unusual punishment, no waterboarding, right?
I don't know that we do waterboarding. There's there are some aspects though, like if you're operating negligently, the Criminal Code of Canada can apply, and then that gets you into a whole nother realm of punishments other than the administrative monetary penalties that you would get from Transport Canada.
Understandable. Well, again, Mr. Miller, I really do appreciate having you on the show to clarify the rules and how they apply to Americans coming into Canada. So thank you very much.
No problem.
Awesome. That's going to do it for us today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you again for listening. Don't forget to leave us a comment. Let us know what you think about the show, any follow-up questions that you may have. And don't forget to leave us a review or subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. Spotify, Apple Podcasts. Don't be afraid to leave us a review. That's going to do it for us today. Thank you so much for listening. My name is Paul. This is Ask Drone U.